Good morning, everybody. In this section, we will deal with the systemic position and races of silkworm. Before moving towards how the rearing of the silkworm takes place, it is very much important to know the systemic position of this particular insect. This insect falls under the kingdom known as Animalia. Its phylum is Arthropoda. Its class is Insecta. It falls under the subclass known as Pterygota. Its division is Endopterygota. Superfamily is Bombicoideae. It falls under three different families depending upon the types of silkworm. The most commonly preferred type is known as mulberry silkworm, which falls under the family known as Bombicidae. The non-mulberry silkworm falls under the family known as Saturnidae. Anaphe silkworm falls under the family known as Notodonidae. Now we will see in detail the races of mulberry silkworm. If we classify races, they get classified into four major groups, of which the most important and commonly used classification form is known as classification based on volatinism. It is a period within a year how much generations are been completed is known as volatinism. Based on volatinism, they get classified into three kinds of races. The first one is known as univolatile. This type of silkworm completes one generation only in a year, produces the most richest and pure silk, whereas the second one is known as biovolatile, in which two generations are being completed in a year by this particular silkworm. The third one, which has been mostly preferred for mask rearing and production of the silk, which is been known as multi-volatile races of silkworm species. These are the type of species which produce more than two generations in a year. In such way, on volatinism basis, mostly the classification is been carried out. After that, the second classification is been carried out on the basis of number of larval molds been occurred, and this particular theory was been first determined by Mendeleev on the basis of the genes being found which mostly perform a heredity character of that particular silkworm. On that basis, mostly classification on the number of the molds can be done. The third one is classification based on geographical distribution. Means where this particular species have been first originated, on that basis mostly they get classified. For example, if you see Bombyx mori, we can classify it in mostly the Chinese race. The second one is known as Japanese race. The third one is known as European race, and the next one is known as Indian race. Mostly on the localities from where it is been originated, they get classified. And the last classification is mostly been based on the genetical nature. This classification is being done on the basis of the species may be pure or whether it is hybrid. On that basis, this particular classification is being done of the silkworm races. We will see certain detailed characters about few of the races which get classified on the basis of volatinism. of which the first group is known as multi-volatile races. The most commonly used Japanese bivolatile race is known as C. nichi, which was been imported first in mostly Mysore. And this particular race is a pure white race, mother species. For crossing different races, it has been popularly been used and is the best race for commercial production of silken cocoons at present. The next race is known as pure Mysore. Mostly this is a colored cocoon which has a very period of about 27 to 28 days, and this is the only demerit due to which this particular race was not been that much popularly been reared for commercial production. This is another most popularly used race which was first been found in 1975 in the state known as Tamil Nadu. Mostly the sericultural department isolated this particular race which was pure white, but the cocoons were a little bit normal in size. The weight gaining was not that much been found, but at that time this was the most famous race known as Tamil Nadu white, which commonly was known as TNW. After that, one of the race was been introduced by Central Sericultural Research Institution known as Nistari for crossing the species and creating a multi-volatile variety, which was a Chinese race first been found in 1881, whereas the another race which mostly belonged to northeastern part of India was known as Sarupat. These are few of the multi-volatile races been found in India. Now we will see the second group known as bivolatile races. These are the races which mostly produce 2 generations in a year. Most of these races are being developed by CSRTI institution Mysore, and the species or the races are NB7, NB18, whereas the most popular races at present being used are CSR2 and CSR3. There are certain another races which are being developed by RSRS station. Kalimpong, the race is KA, whereas the races been developed in Research Institute of KSSRDI Bangalore are ASO1 and SP2. These are certain bio-volatile races. Third group is known as bio-volatile hybrid races. These are the crossings of 2 different races, of which the most important races are CSR2 crossed with CSR4, CSR2 crossed with CSR5, CSR3 crossed with CSR6, CSR12 crossed with CSR6, CSR18 crossed with CSR19, which is a race which can be reared throughout the year in all seasons, whereas the last race known as CSR48 crossed with CSR4. This is a race in which the threads have good type of tenacity with thin dinar been presented. Now we will see the last group of races known as crossbreed races. These are the races which are been crossed with multi-volatile and bivolatile species. 2 examples are BL24 crossed with NB4D2 The most popular one is PM crossed with CSR2, known as Kolar Gold. Next one is APM1 crossed with APS8. Savarna Andhra is that particular species. Kapila, which has been crossed with BL43 crossed with NB4D2. Kaveri BL67 crossed with CSR is another important strain or race, whereas the next one is MH1 crossed with CSR2. The last race is GEN3. These are certain informations about the different races being produced in India. This is the end of the section of systemic position and the races being observed in India. Good day.